Hey, Leo, Cyrus, Alyssa, Augustus, Benaya. Hey, I love y'all. hmm I'm going to read Magic Treehouse today. So let me open this up. Magic Treehouse, Book 1, Dinosaurs Before Dark. Cyrus, do you like dinosaurs? Yeah. All right. Here's a picture of Jack and Annie running in the woods. Dinosaurs Before Dark. Roar. There's Jack and Annie. Chapter 1. Help! A monster, said Annie. Sure. Yeah, sure, said Jack. A real monster in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. Run, Jack, said Annie. She ran up the road. Oh, brother, thought Jack. This is what he got for spending time with his 7-year-old sister. Annie loved pretend stuff. But Jack was 8.5. He liked real things. Watch out, Jack. The monster is coming, said Annie. Jack didn't say anything. Come on, Jack. I'll race you, said Annie. No thanks. Annie raced alone into the woods. Jack, look at the sky. The sun was about to set. Come on, Annie. It's time to go home, Jack yelled. Annie didn't answer. Jack waited. Annie? He called again. Jack, Jack, shouted Annie. Come here quick. Jack groaned. This better be good, he said. He left the road and headed into the woods. The trees were lit with a golden late afternoon light. Over there, called Annie. Annie was standing under a tall oak tree. Look, she said. She pointed at the rope ladder. It was hanging down from high in a tree. In the tree. Wow, whispered Jack. At the top of the tree, there was a treehouse tucked between two branches. That must be the highest treehouse in the world, said Annie. That's what you say a lot of times, Cyrus. The biggest in the world. Who built it? Said Jack. I've never seen it before. I don't know, but I'm going up, said Annie. No, we don't know who it belongs to, said Jack. Just for a teeny minute, said Annie. She started climbing up the ladder. Annie, come back, said Jack. Annie kept climbing. She climbed all the way to the tallest branches. Man, that's dangerous. Look how high that treehouse is. Jack sighed. Annie, it's almost dark. We have to go home. Annie disappeared inside the treehouse. Annie, Jack called. Jack waited a moment. He was about to call again when Annie poked her head out of the treehouse window. Books, Annie said. What? It's filled with books. Oh, man, Jack thought. He loved books. He pushed his glasses into place. He gripped the sides of the rope ladder and started up. Leo, do you like books too? Yeah, Alyssa, you like books? I like books. What about you, Cyrus? Yeah? Chapter 2, The Monster. Jack crawled into the treehouse. Wow, he said. The treehouse was filled with books. Books everywhere, very old books with dusty covers, and new books with shiny, bright covers. Look, said Annie. You can see far away. Annie was peering out of the treehouse window. Jack looked out the window with her. Below were the tops of the other trees in the distance. He could see Frog Creek Library and the elementary school and the park, and he pointed to the other in the other direction. "There's our house," she said. Annie was right. Jack could see their white wooden house with its green porch. In the yard next door was their neighbor's black dog, Henry. He looked very tiny. "Hi, Henry," shouted Annie. "Shh, we're not supposed to be up here," said Jack. Jack glanced around the treehouse again. He noticed that that bookmarks were sticking out of many of the books. "I wonder who owns all these books," she said. "I like this one," said Annie. She picked up a book with a castle on the cover. "Here's a book about Pennsylvania," said Jack. He turned the page turned to the page with the bookmark. "Hey, here's a picture of Frog Creek," said Jack. "It's a picture of these woods." "Oh, here's a book for you," said Annie. She held up a book about dinosaurs. Ah, dinosaurs. Do you like dinosaurs, Cyrus? Yeah, I like dinosaurs. A blue silk bookmark was sticking out of it. "Let me see," said Jack. He set his backpack down on the floor and he grabbed the book from Annie. "Okay, you look at that one and I'll look at the one about the castles," said Annie. "No, we'd better not," said Jack. "We don't know whose these books belong to." But even as he said it, Jack opened the dinosaur book to the place where the bookmark was. He couldn't help himself, turning the page to a picture of a giant flying reptile. He recognized it as a pteranodon. Do you know what a pteranodon is, Cyrus? Leo, do you? What does it sound like? Shh, you're gonna wake the baby. Shh. He touched the huge bat-like wings in the picture. "Wow," whispered Jenny. "I wish I could go to the time of the pteranodons." Jack studied the picture of the odd-looking creature soaring through the sky. "Ah!" screamed Annie. "What?" said Jack. "A monster!" cried Annie. She poked her head out of the house window. "Stop pretending." "No, really," said Annie. Jack looked out the window. A giant creature was gliding from the treetops. It had a long, weird crest on the back of its head and a silky beak and huge bat-like wings. It was a real live pteranodon. The creature was swooping through the sky. It looked like a glider plane. It was coming straight towards the treehouse. "Get down!" cried Annie. Jack and Annie crouched on the floor. When the wind started to blow, the treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still, absolutely still. Chapter 3. Where is here? Jack opened his eyes. The sunlight slanted through the window. The treehouse was still high in the tree, but it wasn't the same tree. "Where are we?" said Annie. She and Jack looked out the window. The pteranodon was soaring through the sky. The ground was covered with ferns and tall grasses. There was a windy stream and a sloping hill and a volcano in the distance. "I don't know where we are," said Jack. The pteranodon glided down to the base of the tree. It landed on the ground and stood very still. "So what just happened to us?" said Annie. "Well," said Jack, "I was looking at the picture in the book, and you said, 'Wow, I wish I could go to the time of the pteranodons,'" said Annie. "Yeah, and then we saw a pteranodon in the Frog Creek woods," said Jack. "Yeah, and then the wind got really loud and the treehouse started spinning," said Annie, "and we landed there." We landed here, said Jack. And we landed here, said Annie. So that means, said Jack. So that means what? Said Annie. I don't know, said Jack. He shook his head. None of this can be real. Annie looked out the window again. But he's real, said Annie. He's very real. Jack looked out the window with her again. The pteranodon was standing at the base of the tree like a guard. Its giant wings were spread out on either side of him. Hi, Annie shouted. Shh, Jack whispered. We're not supposed to be here. But where is here? Said Annie. I don't know, said Jack. Hi, who are you? Annie called to the pteranodon. The creature just looked at her. You're nuts. He can't talk to us, said Jack. But maybe the book can tell us. Jack looked at the book. He read the words under the picture. This flying reptile lived in the Cretaceous period. It vanished 65 million years ago with the dinosaurs. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Yeah, I kind of disagree with the 65 million years ago, but yeah, it was a long time ago. Wow. I wouldn't want to get that close to a pteranodon. That's impossible, said Jack. We can't have gone back a time. All right, gone. We can't have gone to a time 65 million years ago. Jack and Annie. Jack, said Annie. He's nice. Nice, said Jack. Yeah, I can tell, said Annie. Let's go down to him. Go down, said Jack. Annie started down the rope ladder. Hey, come back, said Jack. But Annie kept going. Annie, wait, Jack called. Annie dropped to the ground. She stepped boldly up to the ancient creature. Chapter 4. Henry. Jack gasped as Annie reached her hands out towards the pteranodon. Oh no, he thought. Annie was always trying to make friends with animals, but this was going too far. Don't get too close to him, Annie, Jack shouted. Annie touched the pteranodon's crest. She stroked his neck. She was talking to him. What in the world is she saying? Jack wondered. He took a deep breath. Okay. He would go down too. It would be good to examine a pteranodon. He could make notes like a scientist. The pteranodon stared at Jack. His eyes were bright and alert. He's soft, Jack, said Annie. He feels like Henry. Jack snorted. He's not a dog, Annie. Feel him, Jack, said Annie. Jack didn't move. Don't think, Jack. Just do it, Annie said. Jack stepped forward. He reached out very cautiously. He brushed his hand down the creature's neck. Interesting, Jack thought. A thin layer of fuzz covering the pteranodon's skin. Soft, huh? Said Annie. Jack reached into his backpack and pulled out a pencil and a notebook. He wrote, Fuzzy skin. What are you doing? Annie asked. Taking notes, said Jack. We're probably the first people in the whole world to ever see a real live pteranodon. Jack looked at the pteranodon again. The bony crest on the top of his hand was longer than Jack's arms. I wonder how smart he is, said Jack. Very smart, said Annie. Don't count on it, said Jack. His brain probably isn't any bigger than a bean. No, he's very smart. I can feel it, said Annie. I'm going to call him Henry. Jack wrote in his notebook, small brain, ? Ooh, that would be scary. Yeah. I don't know if I would pet a pteranodon. Jack looked at the creature again. Maybe he's a mutant, he said. The pteranodon tilted his head, and he laughed. He's not a mutant, Jack. Well, what is he doing here? Where is this place? Said Jack. And he leaned close to the pteranodon. Do you know where we are, Henry? She asked softly. The creature fixed his eyes on Annie. Its long jaws were opening and closing like a pair of scissors. Are you going to try to talk to me, Henry? Asked Annie. Forget it, Annie. Jack wrote in his notebook, mouth like scissors. Did we come to a time long ago, Henry? Annie asked. Is this a place from long ago? Suddenly, Annie gasped, Jack! Jack looked up. Annie was pointing toward a hill. On the top of the hill was a huge dinosaur. Roar. Oh, what is that? Do you know, Cyrus? What dinosaur is that? Oh, it's a triceratops. Chapter 5. Gold in the Grass. Go, go, said Jack. He threw his notebook into his pack and he pushed Annie towards the rope ladder. Bye, Henry, she said. Go, said Jack. He gave Annie another push. Quit it, she said. She started up the ladder. Jack scrambled after her. Jack and Annie tumbled into the treehouse. They were panting as they looked out the window at the dinosaur. It was standing on the hilltop, eating flowers off a tree. Oh man, whispered Jack. We are in a time long ago. The dinosaur looked like a huge rhinoceros. It had 3 horns instead of 1. It had 2 long horns above its eyes, and another one grew out of its nose. It had a big shield-like thing behind its head. Triceratops, said Jack. Does it eat people? Whispered Annie. He looked it up. He grabbed the dinosaur book. He flipped through the pages. There! Jack pointed at a picture of the Triceratops. He read the caption. Triceratops lived in the late Cretaceous period. This is a plant-eating dinosaur weighing over 12,000 pounds. Jack slammed the book shut. Just plants, no meat. Oh, all right, good, said Annie. Let's go see him up close. Are you crazy? Said Jack. Don't you want to take notes about him? Asked Annie. We're probably the first people in the whole world to ever see a real live Triceratops. Jack sighed. Annie was right. Okay, let's go. Jack shoved the dinosaur book into his pack, and they slung his pack over his shoulder. Annie started down the ladder, and Jack followed her. Just promise you won't pet him, Jack called down to Annie. I promise, said Annie. Promise that you won't kiss him, said Jack. I promise, said Annie. Promise you won't talk to him. I promise, said Annie. I promise you won't. Don't worry, said Annie. Annie and Jack stepped off the ladder. The Pteranodon gave them a friendly look, and he blew him a kiss. Be back soon, Henry, she called. Shh, said Jack. He led the way slowly and carefully through the ferns. When Jack and Annie reached the bottom of the hill, they knelt behind a bush. Annie started to speak, but Jack quickly put his finger to his lips. Then he and Annie peeked out at the Triceratops. The dinosaur was bigger than a truck. It was eating flowers of a magnolia tree. Jack slipped his notebook out of his pack and wrote, Eats flowers. Annie nudged him. Jack ignored her. He studied the Triceratops skin. He wrote, Eat slowly. Annie nudged him harder. Jack looked at her. Annie pointed to herself. She was making her fingers through the She walked her fingers through the air. She pointed to the dinosaur. She smiled. Is she teasing? Jack wondered. Annie waved at Jack. Jack started to grab her. She laughed and jumped away. She fell into the grass in the full view of the Triceratops. Get back, whispered Jack. Too late. The big dinosaur had spotted Annie. He gazed down at her from the hilltop. Half of the magnolia flower was sticking out of his mouth. Oops, said Annie. Get back, Jack said again. He looks nice, Jack, Annie said. Nice? Watch out for his horns, Annie, said Jack. The Triceratops gazed calmly down at Annie. Then he turned and looped down the hillside, the side of the hill. Bye, said Annie. She turned back to Jack. See? Jack grunted. He wrote in his book. Nice. Come on, let's look around for some more, said Annie. Wow. That's a big Triceratops. Jack started after Annie. He saw something glittering in the tall grass. He reached down and picked it up. It was a golden medallion. A letter was engraved on the medallion, a fancy M. Oh man, somebody was here before us, Jack said softly. Chapter 6, Dinosaur Valley. Annie, look at this, Jack called. Look what I found. Annie got up to the hilltop. She was picking a flower from the magnolia tree. Annie, look, a medallion, shouted Jack. Annie wasn't paying attention to Jack. She was staring at something on the other side of the hill. Oh, wow, she said. Clustering her magnolia flowers, she took off down the hill. Annie, come back, shouted Jack. But Annie disappeared. Oh, brother, Jack muttered. He stuffed the golden medallion into his jean pocket. Then Jack heard Annie shriek. Annie, he said. Jack heard another sound as deep as a deep bellowing sound like a tuba. Jack, come here quick, Annie called. Jack raced over the hill. He got to the top. He grasped the valley below. He gasped. The valley below was filled with nests, big nests made out of mud. Nests were filled with tiny dinosaurs. Annie was crouching next to one of the nests. Towering over was a gigantic duck-billed dinosaur. Don't panic. Don't move, said Jack. He stepped slowly down the hill towards Annie. The huge dinosaur was waving her arms and making her tuba sound. Oh, that'll be scary. Stop! Jack stopped. He didn't want to get too close. He knelt on the ground. Okay, move toward me slowly, he said, and he started to stand up. Don't stand, crawl, said Jack. Clustering her flowers, Jenny crawled back towards Jack. Still bellowing, the duck-billed dinosaur followed her. Annie froze. Keep moving, Jack said, and he started crawling again. Jack inched further and further down the hill till he was just in arm's reach with Annie. He reached out and grabbed her. He pulled Annie towards him. Stay down, Jack said. He crouched next to her. Bow your head. Pretend to be chewing. Chewing? And he said, yes, said Jack. I read that's what you do if a mean dog comes at you. She's no dog, Jack, said Annie. Just chew. Jack and Annie both bowed their heads and pretended to chew. The dinosaur grew quiet. Jack looked up. I didn't think she's mad anymore, he said. You saved me, said Annie. Thanks. You have to use your brain, Annie, said Jack. You can't just go running into the nest of babies. There's always a mother nearby. Annie stood up. Annie, wait. Jack stopped. Oh. Annie, don't, said Jack. Too late. Annie held out her magnolia flower to the dinosaur. I'm sorry I made you worry about your baby, she said. The dinosaur moved closer to Annie. She grabbed the flower from her hand and she reached for another. No more. The dinosaur let out a sad tuba sound. But there are more flowers up there, said Annie. She pointed to the top of the hill. I'll get you some. Annie hurried up the hill. The dinosaur waddled after her. Jack quickly looked at the dinosaur's babies. Some were crawling on the desk. Where are all the other mothers? Jack wondered. Jack took out the book. He flipped through the pages. He found a picture of some duck-billed dinosaurs. He read the caption, "The Anatosaurus lived in colonies, while a few mothers babysat the nest. The others looked for food. So there's probably more mothers close by looking for food. Hey, Jack!" Annie called. Jack looked up. Annie was at the top of the hill feeding magnolia flowers to the giant Anatosaurus. "Guess what?" she said. "She's nice too." Suddenly, the Anatosaurus made her terrible tuba sound, and he crouched down and started to chew. The dinosaur charged down to hear. She seemed afraid of something. Jack put the book back in his bag. He hurried towards Annie. "I wonder why she ran away," said Annie. "We are starting to be friends." Jack looked around. What he saw in the distance almost made him faint. An enormous monster was coming across the plains. What is it? What do you think it is, Cyrus? I bet you're right. The monster was walking on two strong legs. It was stringing a long, thick tail and dangling two tiny arms. It had a huge head, and its jaws were wide open. Even from far away, Jack could see its long, gleaming teeth. "Tyrannosaurus Rex," whispered Jack. Chapter 7. Ready, set, go. Annie, run! Cried Jack. "Run into the treehouse!" Annie and Jack dashed down the hill. Together they ran through the tall grass and the ferns, past the pterodon. They scrambled up the rope ladder and tumbled into the treehouse. Annie leaped to the window. "It's going away," she panted. Jack pushed his glasses into place. He looked out the window with Annie. The Tyrannosaurus was wandering off, but then the monster stopped and turned. "Duck," said Jack. The two of them ducked their heads. After a long moment, they peeked out the window again. "Coast is clear." "Yay," whispered Annie. "We have to get out of here," said Jack. "You made a wish before, right?" said Jack. He took a deep breath. "I wish I could go back to Frog Creek." Nothing happened. "I said I wish," started Jack. "Wait, you were looking at a picture of the dinosaur book, remember?" "Oh, no, I left the book in my pack on the hill," said Jack. "I have to go back." "Forget it. I can't," said Jack. "The book doesn't belong to us. Plus, my notebook with all my notes are in the pack. And my... Okay, Annie said. "I'll hurry," said Jack. He climbed down the ladder and leaped to the ground. He raced past the pteranodon, through the ferns, through the tall grass, up the hill. He looked down. His pack was laying on the ground. On the top of it was the dinosaur book. But now the valley below was filled with Anatosauruses. They were all standing their grounds around their nest. They had been where they had been. Did fear of the Tyrannosaurus send them home? He took a deep breath. Ready, set, go, he thought. He started charging down the hill, ran uh, ran to his backpack. He scooped it up. He grabbed the dinosaur book. Jack heard a terrible sound. Then another, and another. All the ankylosaurs were bellowing at him. Jack took off. He raced up the hill. He started down the hill. And he stopped. The Tyrannosaurus was back, and it was standing between Jack and the treehouse. Oh no. That's a big dinosaur. What would you do, Leo? Would you try to sneak around it? I don't know. Chapter 8. A Giant's Shadow. Jack jumped behind the magnolia tree. His heart was beating so fast he could hardly think. He peeked out at the giant monster. The terrible-looking creature was opening its huge jaws. Its teeth were as big as steak knives. Don't panic, thought Jack. Think. He peered down the valley. Good. The duck-billed dinosaurs were sticking close to their nest. Jack looked back at the Tyrannosaurus. Good. The monster didn't seem to know he was there. Don't panic. Think. Maybe there's information in the book. Jack opened the dinosaur book and he found the Tyrannosaurus. He read, Tyrannosaurus was one of the largest meat-eating land animals of all time. If it were alive today, it could eat a human in one bite. Great, thought Jack. This book was no help at all. He tried to think clearly. He couldn't hide on the other side of the hill. The Anosauruses might stampede. He couldn't run to the treehouse. A Tyrannosaurus might run faster. Maybe he should just wait for the monster to lead. He peeked around the tree. The Tyrannosaurus was wandering closer to the hill. Something caught Jack's eye. Annie! Annie was coming down the ladder. Oh no. Uh-oh. Dinosaur's going to get him. She's nuts. What's she doing? Wondered Jack. Jack watched Annie hop off the ladder. He hurried over to the Pteranodon. She was talking to him. She was flapping her arms. She pointed at Jack and at the sky at the treehouse. She's nuts, thought Jack. Go back. All right, go back up there, whispered Jack. Go. Jack heard a roar. The Tyrannosaurus was looking at his direction. Jack hit the ground. The Tyrannosaurus was coming towards the hill. Jack felt the ground shaking. What should I do? Jack wondered. Should I run? Should I crawl back to the dinosaur valley? Climb the magnolia tree? Suddenly, a giant shadow covered Jack. He looked up. The Pteranodon was gliding overhead. The giant creature sailed up towards the top of the hill. He was heading towards Jack. There's the Pteranodon. It's coming. It's flying. Chapter 9. The Amazing Ride. The Pteranodon coasted down to the ground. Jack stared at Jack with his bright, alert eyes. What was Jack supposed to do? Climb on? But I'm too heavy, thought Jack. Jack looked at the Tyrannosaurus. It was starting up the hill. Its giant teeth were flashing in the sunlight. Okay, thought Jack. Don't think, just do it. Jack put his book in his pack. He climbed up on the Pteranodon's back. He held tightly. The creature was moving forward. He spread his wings and lifted off the ground. Jack nearly fell off as they teetered this way and that. The Pteranodon steadied himself and rose into the sky. Jack looked down. The Tyrannosaurus was staring up at him, chopping in the air. The Pteranodon glided away. He sailed over the hilltop, over the valley. He circled all the duck-billed dinosaurs and all the nests filled with babies. Then the Tyrannosaurus soared over the plains, over the Triceratops who were grazing in the high grasses. Jack felt like a bird. The wind was rushing through his hair. The air smelled sweet and fresh. Whoa, that was close. Jack whooped and laughed. He couldn't believe it. He was riding on the back of an ancient flying reptile. The Pteranodon sailed over the stream, over the ferns and bushes. Then he carried Jack down to the base of the oak tree. When they came to a stop, Jack slid off the creature's back and landed on the ground. The Pteranodon took off again and glided into the air. "Bye, Henry," called Jack. "Jack, are you okay?" Annie shouted from the tree house. Jack pushed his glasses into place. He kept staring at the Pteranodon. "Jack," Annie called. Jack looked up at Annie. He smiled. "Thanks for saving my life," he said. "That was really fun." "Thanks, Henry. Thank Henry, not me," said Annie. "Come on, climb up." Jack tried to stand. His legs were wobbly. He felt a bit dizzy. "Hurry!" Annie shouted. "It's coming." Jack looked around. The Tyrannosaurus was heading straight for Jack. Jack bolted up the ladder. He started climbing. "Hurry, hurry!" Annie screamed. Screamed Annie. Jack reached the top and scrambled into the treehouse. "It's coming towards the tree," Annie cried. The dinosaur slammed against the oak. The tree house shook like a leaf in the wind. Annie and Jack tumbled into the books. "Make a wish to go home." "I need the book. The Pennsylvania book," said Jack. "Where is it?" They both searched madly around the treehouse. "Found it," said Jack. He grabbed it and flipped through the pages. He found the photo of the Frog Creek woods. He pointed at the picture. "I wish I could go home," he shouted. The wind began to blow. Jack closed his eyes. He held on tightly to Annie. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still, absolutely still. Chapter 10. Home Before Dark. Jack heard a bird singing. He opened his eyes. He was still pointing at the picture of the Frog Creek woods. He peeked out the window. Outside, he saw the exact same view as the picture book. "We're home," whispered Annie. The woods were lit with a golden late afternoon light. The sun was about to set. No time has passed since they left Frog Creek. "Oh, that's cool." "Jack, Annie," a voice from the distance. "That's Mom," said Annie. Jack saw their mother far away. She was standing on the front of their house. She looked tiny. "Annie, Jack," she called. Annie stuck out her head out of the window and shouted, "Coming!" Jack felt dizzy. He just stared at Annie. "What's happened to us?" he said. "We took a trip in a magic treehouse," said Annie simply. "But it's the same time as when we left," said Jack. Annie shrugged. "How did it take us so far away?" said Jack. "And so long ago." "You looked at the picture in the book and you said I wish to go there," said Annie. "And the magic treehouse took us there." "But how?" said Jack. "And who built the magic treehouse? Who put all these books here?" "A magic person, I guess." "Oh, look," said Jack. "I almost forgot about this." He reached in his pocket and pulled out the golden medallion. "Someone lost this back there," he said, "in the dinosaur land. Look, there's a letter M on it." And his eyes got round. "You think the M might stand for magic person?" she asked. "I don't know," said Jack. "I just know someone went to the place before us." "Jack! Annie!" their mom called again. "Coming!" shouted Annie. Jack put the golden medallion back in his pocket. He pulled the dinosaur book out of his pack and put it back with all the other books. Then he and Annie took one last look around the treehouse. "Goodbye, house," whispered Annie. Jack slung slung his backpack over his shoulder, and he started down the rope ladder. Jack followed. Seconds later, they into the ground and started hop onto the ground and started walking out of the woods. No one's going to believe our story, said Jack. So let's not tell anyone, said Annie. Dad won't believe it, said Jack. He'll say it was a dream. Mom won't believe it, said Jack. She'll say it was pretend. My teacher won't believe it, said Jack. She'll say you're nuts. We're better off not telling anyone. I already said that, said Annie. Jack said, I think I'm starting not to believe it myself, he said. They left the woods and started up the road towards their house. As they walked past all the houses on their street, the trip to the dinosaur time did seem more and more like a dream. Only this world and this time seemed real. Jack reached into his pocket. He clasped the golden medallion. He felt the engraving of the letter M. It made his fingers tingle. Jack laughed. Suddenly he felt very happy. He couldn't explain what had happened today, but he knew for sure that their trip to the Magnet Treehouse had been real. Absolutely real. Tomorrow, Jack said softly, we'll go back to the woods. Of course, said Annie. And we'll climb up the treehouse, said Jack. Of course, said Annie. And we'll see what happens next, said Jack. Of course, said Annie. Race you. And they took off together, running for home. The end. Well, Leo, Cyrus, Alyssa, Augustus, Benaiah, Mommy, I love you guys. And I pray that I'm able to be with you soon. But until then, I pray that this makes you feel close to me. And to anybody else out there who's separated from their parent, I pray that God just makes you feel close to them. Lord, just bless us. In Jesus' name, amen. Love y'all.